Welcome to the Fabric Podcast, where we explore company culture and how it scales as a company grows. Brought to you by the team at The Receptionist, a bootstrapped, Denver-based software company. Each episode of Fabric will set out to uncover unique and uncommon answers to the question, how do companies of any size create a culture and core values that employees actually live out? Did you notice anything different in that intro? Guess what? We're no longer the Check-In Podcast. We are the Fabric Podcast. And on today's episode, we're joined by Michael Ashford, Director of Marketing, to tell you all about this new change, why we rebooted and rebranded, how we did it as a company, and what you can do if you are considering some big changes in your company and you're not quite sure if the timing is right. We also share more about what you can expect from the Fabric Podcast, including learning more about our culture and how it's going to scale as we grow. But we don't just want to talk about ourselves. We'd like to hear about our customers and even our non-customers. So stick around for the show and look out for that special invitation at the end of today's episode. All right, we are back on the podcast. Michael, how are you doing today?
I'm doing awesome, Sarah, and this is going to be an exciting episode, I think.
I know, I think so too, because we have a big surprise, which listeners probably already caught on to, but let us know what is going on with the podcast.
Dun, 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 dun. Well, for one, we're doing a video podcast now. So I guess the rest of the world, if they want to, they can see our beautiful faces. But...
I know, you can see what we actually look like.
Yeah.
Hello.
But we have rebranded the podcast. It is no longer called The Check-In. It is called the Fabric Podcast. And we're going to get into the reasons why we did that today, but this will not be a show about quilting and sewing and what different fabrics you use to create.
For those of you who found us thinking this is my next sewing podcast. This is
That's not going to be this. That's not going to be. I don't know that any of us here at the Receptionist sew. So
maybe someday, as the team grows, maybe we'll get some crafters.
That's true.
But yeah, I love that we're rebranding from more of what we do, the check-in, to more of who we are, the Fabric Podcast.
And that's a great way to put it, Sarah. I was listening to all of our episodes, and just over and over again, we brought up fabric, our core values, our culture in darn near every episode.
Yes.
And we touched on fun, authentic, bold, respectful, innovative, collaborative on almost every single episode. And it just kept being this theme that, much like sewing and fabric, it just wove itself through every episode. And I and the rest of the team said, we think this is a good opportunity to, again, readjust what we're doing here on the podcast and see if we can really drive into this idea of how do you make company values and culture scale in the same way that you're trying to make a business scale, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's true. It got to a point where on every episode, I was like, well, here we are talking about fabric again, which was never a surprise because that is obviously so important to who we are and what we do. So it definitely makes sense that we are shifting the podcast to reflect on that more. So you already told us, what fabric stands for, but for anyone who's new or maybe hasn't heard our particular episodes where we dig into it, can you share a bit more about fabric, what it means, how it plays a role here?
Yeah, so it's always interesting. We always describe fabric as, of course, our company values and the culture, how we build our culture here at The Receptionist. We want to be fun, authentic, bold, respectful, innovative, and collaborative. And everyone at the company can recite it just as clear as day as I just did. How we always have to explain it is this wasn't something where we said, how can we make our company values fit into the word fabric? Like, we didn't come up with fabric and then create the acronym after that. It was the effort of our CEO and president, Andy Alsup, and our two co-founders, Jessica Marshall, our director of customer experience, and Dylan Berry, our director of engineering. They were really working through the traction model, which we talked about on the podcast before, and coming up with our company values. And it organically, as so much stuff does with even just changing the podcast, this is happening organically. It organically came to a place where we were one letter off. And I can't remember which letter it was, but I think it was Jessica who said, hey, if we switch this letter to be, let's say it was an A instead of a C, then it would spell out the word fabric. And that was just kind of an aha moment for everyone. And what we absolutely do is before the start of our team meetings, we talk about what fabric is. You'll hear it in everyday language at the company, and we want to make it, and it is something that we truly live out every single day that we come into work. And so it just made sense that we would, like I said earlier, dig deeper into this idea of how do you create a company value that is authentic, that is organically produced, but that employees actually live out. And that's
Right.
what we want to explore moving forward. We're still going to get into our business and how we're trying to grow as a bootstrapped company, because that's still an element of fabric in our culture. But we want to expand what that looks like.
Absolutely. And what I love too about this idea of fabric is, when you talk about company culture, I think you often think internal, right? Like this
Yeah.
is who we are internally, how we act with each other, but this is also external. This is how we want to
Yeah.
do business with the people that we work with, or even the people who don't end up becoming our customers. Fabric
Yep.
really is woven throughout internally and externally who we are as a company.
I'll mention something that took place in an interview that we were in on yesterday with a potential job candidate. One of the things that I said during that interview was, obviously, we've got a product that we're trying to sell, and Delin has created an amazing product, but there's a lot of competitors in the space of visitor management systems. What I and the rest of the team here at the Receptionist want to do in core, conveying those core values to the rest of the world is we want to create an affinity for who we are as people.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you look at, fun, the F in fabric, yesterday it was Halloween as we record this, and we jumped on our weekly sneak peek webinar, and we made it the spooky Halloween edition of the webinar. And
I love
Tom, our
that.
director of sales, dressed up as Slash. And during our webinars from the band Guns N' Roses,
Yeah.
he dressed up as Slash. And during our webinars, Tom is actually on video, much like you and I are right now. And so the audience gets to see Tom, our director of sales, in this long flowing, he's bald like I am.
Bald,
but
so you guys will see him eventually.
I think we're going to put that episode up on our channel when we actually launch it, just so people could see, like, we don't take ourselves too seriously. And at the end of the day, this is who we are. We're not trying to fake this. And we want other people to understand that and have an affinity for who we are as a people, not just because we have an amazing product as well.
Absolutely. So it's clear that culture is really important to us.
It is.
And as you said, that will be a part of what we're doing here on the Rebooted podcast. But it won't just be us and talking about our culture and even talking about our business. So why is it important that we dig into not only our culture, but the culture of other companies as well?
Because we're not the end all be all. There are other people who have done it.
So true.
Yeah. There are other people who have done it differently, but seen great results from it. And that's what we want to explore. What does culture look like outside of the Receptionist? How are companies thinking about it, especially in today's business environment, political environment, social environment? There are a lot of things that business leaders and employees of companies have to think about that affect not just the bottom line of the company, but how those employees act and feel and perform in their job. And culture and core values are a huge part of that. So we want to explore what that looks like. We want to go to our customers, for instance, and ask them and dig up those instances where they're doing things really in an interesting and different way. We want to go to people who aren't our customers and figure out what they're doing and see and just bring those stories to light. We want to uncover those things because it is so important to us.
Yeah, well, I look forward to talking with all of those new companies that we bring in and learn more about what they're up to. So let's shift gears for a moment, because from a marketing standpoint, it can feel scary to make a change like this, to shift the direction of something that's a critical part of your business, like the podcast. So why is it important to be willing to change?
Well, at the end of the day, my title is the director of marketing, and we want to get our message out there and broadcast it as widely as we can. And we have to be willing to adjust what that message looks like. One of the things that I heard recently, and I'm sorry, I can't attribute it to the person because I don't remember who it was, but I remembered what they said. They said, the time to make a change is the time when something is working really well, because you have time on your side. No one's really expecting anything. There's no pressure to do so. So you can be creative and free and loose with it and test and iterate on things. And that's something that Andy is really big on as well, as testing and constantly pushing, for trying different things and
Yeah.
seeing if they work or not. And the podcast is one of those things. A lot of marketers look at podcasts as just simply a fun kind of branding exercise. For us, it is about getting our message out there. And the podcasting space and the podcasting world is, I believe, still in its infancy. And it's something that I think, just like you would A/B test a subject line in an email, you should be constantly testing and thinking about, how do I make the content as relevant as possible to the audience who we most want to attract.
Right. And that's important because, as we said, it sort of became logical for us. Like, we always talk about fabric in the
Yeah.
show. It makes sense that we might shift to that, but it's also about what the listeners might be interested in. As we said, it's not just internally what we do. It's, we want to make sure we're serving the people who are wanting to know more about us and what we do, whether they're our customers or not. But I could see
Yeah.
where, from a marketing standpoint, that could be hard to do, or you might question, should we make this change? So how might a company come to a conclusion that they might need to shift their marketing efforts? I love what you said, like, when things are going well, that can be a good
Yeah.
time to do it. But how might they sort of figure out, it might be time to make a different choice or try something new?
You look at your metrics, I think, first and foremost. I mean, you look at podcast downloads as, a
Mhm.
great one, or reach. What's the reach that you're getting? And that's just in the podcasting world, and really anything that marketing does, there's something measurable that you can take away from it and say, hey, are we getting better at this? Are we getting more efficient in our spend at this? But I'm really big on gut feel as
Mm.
well, and that your first intuition is usually the right one. It's that gut check moment where you feel it. And I think a lot of marketers are sometimes scared to trust that, and also aren't confident in articulating that to perhaps their boss or their manager.
Right.
It's really hard to come into a meeting and say, well, I just feel this is right. But if you back it up with the things that we've been talking about, this is something that we say as that we believe in as a company. This is something that comes up on every single episode.
Mhm.
This is a way for us to engage the greater market and not just talk about ourselves and our customers, but be bold. The B in fabric, be bold and go out there and ask other companies who aren't our customers, ask our customers, uh, and get more guests on the show to expand the working knowledge of what it means to have a great company culture. So while at the end of the day, yes, you can measure just about everything that marketing does, I love just the gut feel aspect
Right.
of it. Like, when and I think that's not to be taken lightly.
Absolutely. But also, we work in a company where those gut instincts can be trusted a lot of the time, because
Yeah,
we have that team behind us that is going to respectfully hear what that is. And I think,
yeah.
as we know, unfortunately, that's not the case in every single company. So it's nice here that that gut instinct is something that you can trust, and then know that when I bring this to the team, it's going to be heard.
Said perfectly. And
Thank you.
that actually leads to, I guess, a higher level goal that I have with this podcast is, we as a company want to show that you can grow a company and still care about the people in the company, and
Mhm.
the human element of the employees. For far too long, I think a lot of us can perhaps agree that companies were simply working to be this assembly line of, you come into work and you have an output and you leave at the end of the day. And that we as a company don't care what happens after work, before work, during work, to your
Even during
mental,
work,
yeah,
right? Just get
to
the
your
job
mental,
done.
right, to your
Just do it.
mental state. So we want to be a champion of that mentality, that
Mhm.
you can grow and scale a really successful business. And we happen to be doing it through bootstrapping it, not
Mhm.
taking on funding. No right way or the other, or wrong way or the other there, not judging, but that's how we are doing it. But we're trying to grow, we're trying to scale, we have big goals, and we want to be people. We want to be aware of the people side of things as well, as much, if not more so, than the bottom line.
Absolutely. Well, and this is a really exciting time to do that because we talked in a recent episode about our 21 operational plan and how we will be growing. And at the end of Q4 of 2021, we will be at 40 people in the company and over 10,000 locations. So this is a great time to really look at how we do scale that culture as our company grows.
For sure. I mean, we're going to be having our newest marketing hire on the podcast here really soon. I'm no longer a marketing team of one here at the Receptionist.
So the team of one. We're a team of two now.
I'm really excited for that, but I'm turning right back around and hiring for another role right after the first of the year. And, it's coming fast and furious right now. And it's something that we are vitally aware of is we're going to be growing ourselves in major ways. Substantive changes are coming to this company over the next year to 18 months. And my goodness, like we love what we do right now and we want to hold on to that, but also change as the circumstances do.
Right. Because what you can do with a team of 10 might be different with a team of 40.
Oh yeah.
In good ways and challenging ways. It's different. So it's good to be sort of on top of how that's going to evolve. So let's just chat briefly. When you had this sort of gut feeling like we should go a different direction with the podcast, what was then the collaborative nature into actually coming to this conclusion to then tell me, okay, we're doing it. Like this is happening. Get ready, get your hair done because you're on video now.
Right.
Like, what was the collaborative nature?
It was a build up to our quarterly team meeting where we sit down and talk about what our rock is for the upcoming quarter. And so for the folks who have listened to the podcast or know the traction model, the EOS traction model, every quarter you have individually, you have a rock that you work on, that big item that if you get nothing else done in the quarter, that's the thing that you get done. And I had been having this gut feel that I wanted to make a change with the podcast. So I started to, first and foremost, talk to the people that I interact with most. Tom, the director of sales. He's a great sounding board. He thinks a lot like I do. And so we just started talking about what would a change look like? What direction would we go? Once we brought on Kayla, certainly we had our new campaigns manager here at the Receptionist. Certainly I brought her into that conversation. It was a conversation with Andy during my one-on-one meetings with him and kind of fleshing out, what do you think? Do you feel this would be a good idea? Here are because we came up with a bunch of different ways or pathways we could take this podcast. And we kind of settled on what we're talking about here. And then I brought it to the greater team in that Q4 planning meeting to basically present my rock to the team. And what we do after those meetings is we kind of leave a week of a gap in there. And anybody who has questions about your rock can come to you, ask you questions. When you announce to the entire team that, hey, you're going to be on video more, for instance.
Some of us are like, oh man.
Yeah, that can cause some heart palpitations in some people. So you just start making the case internally as well. And I think everybody is on board with it because they understand just how impactful Fabric is to us. And it just felt naturally right to name this the Fabric Podcast and go that direction.
Awesome. And so obviously we're rebranding the podcast. We've got video of this, but also, as you mentioned, we're going to have a channel so people can see the videos of the podcast. But what sorts of other things will people possibly see on our channel now?
Yeah. So I've been tasked to document a lot more. Andy came to me one day and said, hey, we're growing so much as a company that month to month, quarter to quarter, we change so much, even the physical space that we're in the office. And I'm not in the office right now. I'm in my office at home, but we're getting ready to undergo some changes to our space to accommodate the growing staff that we have. And we want to document that because we were thinking, man, we don't have any pictures of when we first started. And the little space that we were in, the little folding table and chairs that we had as a brand new startup. So we want to document more of that, not just in pictures, but in videos, some behind the scenes work. I have it on my list to do more client testimonials. So actually going on site to customers and really getting a feel for how are they using the receptionist and what is it allowing them to do above and beyond in their jobs that they perhaps weren't able to do previous to the receptionist. So getting more client FaceTime in there.
Yeah, I love that because we've had a number of, customer spotlights on the podcast so far.
Right.
And it is so fun and interesting to hear how they're using the receptionist in their setting because everyone's using it slightly differently and finding ways that really just make a lot of sense for their needs and their clients' needs. So I think that would be really cool to actually go in and see the people and see what that actually looks like.
Yeah, one of our customer support representatives, Hannah Morris, who's been on the podcast, everybody has at this point. She said, or no, it's actually Kaylee, our business development rep. Kaylee said, so this is kind of going to be like The Office. If you love the show The Office. And I was like, it's not going to be. we don't have a Michael Scott. Tom may be Michael Scott. He's probably going to hate me for saying that.
All the best ways of Michael Scott. I love you, Tom.
But, the closer we can get to documenting the life of what it looks like at the receptionist and who our customers are, I would love to be compared to The Office if that's awesome. If that's what it is.
I feel like we're going to have lots of like gym moments of just like looking at the camera. Like,
yeah, right.
Well, that's exciting. I mean, I think, for all of us involved, we obviously love fabric. It's who we are, and it does come up all the time. So it makes sense that we can focus on that even more. But also while understanding what's going on with us as a company and meeting more of our customers and even people who aren't our customers. So before we wrap up today, I know you've got kind of a final request you want to make to our listeners. So fill us in.
So as part of everything that we've talked about, we need guests. We want more guests. We want the content to come from the broader market. And so if you know of a company that has a unique culture or doing something really unique, I came across a company the other day that they give, they make their employees take a certain amount of vacation each year. And if you meet that, they actually pay their employees a bonus. That's really cool. That is a core value or a core belief of that company, that taking time off to work on yourself and be with family and just take a break is really important to them. It's not unlike the fact that Andy, our CEO, makes us take a minimum of 2 weeks off every year. And so I reached out to them. Hopefully we can get them on the podcast. I won't say who they are yet, but we want those stories. So if you know of a company doing something like that, reach out.
If you are one of those companies doing something like that.
Customer of the receptionist or not. And this is not a sales attempt.
Right.
We're not going to get you on the podcast and say, hey, do you want
at the end? We just want to hear about what you're up to and what's working.
Exactly. So reach out to me, michael@thereceptionist.com, or you can email marketing@thereceptionist.com. Either one of those will work. And I would love to explore what that looks like with you. So if that is you, if that is your company, if that is a company you know, reach out. We'd love to have you on.
Good. Well, I look forward to meeting some of you and the people that you refer, because we can't wait to hear more than what we're up to, because we know what we're up to. So we want to keep sharing. Well, awesome. I'm excited to keep going with the Fabric podcast. Michael, thank you so much for coming on today and sharing this exciting news with everyone. We look forward to having you back on next time.
Absolutely. Thanks, Sarah.
Well, there you have it. The first episode of the Fabric podcast. We hope you're as excited as we are. We're looking forward to sharing all about our culture and the culture of other companies. So like Michael said, if you are doing interesting things with company culture, or you know of another company, please feel free to reach out, customer or not. And if you're not a customer and you think you might be interested in the visitor management system, don't forget, we do have a 2-week free trial. No credit card required at thereceptionist.com.